welcome. So this is Kaiti Draws, and if this happens to be your first video, check out some of the other videos. Typically I end up drawing, and I'm also talking about goddesses and heroines from all across the globe. Today though, there is no drawing because I like to make sure that I get everything correct. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I really just want to do my best that I'm not doing that for you. I want to clarify a few things, but even some of this stuff I can't 100% clarify. So I want to talk about my Tibetan Buddhist series that I just did, and it's about the Tseringma Sisters. It was very complicated. This is my first 5-parter I've ever done video form, and I made a lot of mistakes. So let me run that down for you if you're interested. So first of all, order of operations, confusing and too long. My future videos will not be that lengthy. They're gonna get straight to the point. I get really excited. Honestly, that's what it is. I get so excited. I talk too much. And I just really love learning about different areas, different cultures, different religion, mythology, everything. So that's on me. I should have organized it differently. So in the future, we'll fix. I will actually probably fix these videos so they make a lot more sense down the road when I have a little more time. So the second most important thing, and I think everybody needs to make sure that they keep this in mind all the time, personal bias. You will see that I do exude some personal bias through this series. A part of that is that I tend to always root for the underdog. And in this case, it seemed like the underdog was the indigenous Bon religion. But that actually might not be the case. It might actually be, historically, the Buddhist, the Bon, and the indigenous religion were clashing against each other. I'm not a huge fan of how we assimilate religion and convert people to their religion, but I also understand how it happens, and it's really important. But personal bias is always something to keep in mind and keep in check. Just because I don't want it to be that way doesn't mean it didn't happen that way. So some actual clarifications on some details that I think I made some mistakes on. One I definitely made a mistake on is that I said in our Dharmapala section that there was a group of 3 gods that I said were Dharmapalas. That actually isn't true. So Dharmapalas are, it's still very confusing to me, but Dharma protectors. Dharmapalas tend to be wrathful deities who were converted at some point. So the Tseringma Sisters still are applied under these Dharmapalas, but some of the other gods that I mentioned are actually not. They're in a whole different subsect, and we'll go over that another time, but that's just something I wanted to clarify. The second thing, I really wanted to emphasize the Myolang Sangma, so the first goddess I did of the series, and the Sherpa people. I really should have done those two together because the Sherpa people very much still believe and worship Myolang Sangma, and she is very pivotal. In fact, she is considered to be the goddess of Mount Everest in some studies. This might not be entirely true because we have multiple studies, different scholars, different clans, all kinds of stuff. But she is really important to Mount Everest and local Tibetans today. So they should have been together. So it might have seemed really confusing, and that was my mistake. In my initial summary, I said that Padmasambhava was the person that brought Buddhism to Tibet. And that's not entirely true. I would say he was the one that very much popularized Tibetan Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism was introduced numerous times. We had many people intersecting with each other throughout Tibetan history. And I think I said in the summary in my first video that Padmasambhava was the reason why Tibetan Buddhism became the thing. And it's somewhat true, but he was not the first by far. And he was actually invited by the emperor of that time, who was practicing Buddhism. For clarification on some of the historical facts and timelines of Tibet, go check out my video on that particular topic because it is really important to break it down. There's a lot of links and a lot of citations that kind of break everything down for you, and you can kind of follow the timeline and get a little more insight in that regard. Summarizing this timeline is very complicated, not only because there's so many different scholarly articles that cover it, and there's a lot of infighting about some of this stuff, but there's language issues as well. There wasn't necessarily a written language, there was a lot of oral passing down, and it definitely was not clear in some ways. And sometimes they integrated Sanskrit, Tibetan, Chinese, all of it would kind of intermingle together, and it still does. That's why it's a very confusing thing. So that is my really short video summarizing kind of some of the mistakes that I made on this video, and I'll make sure to keep that in check next time. Make sure to put all of the research up front anytime I do a 5-parter. Just make sure I really do a better job and navigating all of the different sections because it can be very complicated. Mythology is so cool, and it explains a lot about human history, human experiences, different cultures, how they viewed specific things in their area, or how they were able to understand the world around them. So I just don't want it to deter you from continuing on this journey with me. Stick around for Aztec mythology next. Stick around for videos for the future if you haven't been here before. And thanks.